Well, hello everyone. Welcome to WeaverCast. WeaverCast is a regular podcast where we review tips and best practices for RapidWeaver and web design. I am Joe Workman, your host. I'm an indie Mac and web developer based in the San Francisco Bay Area. This is show number 25. Today is Tuesday, April 1st, 2014, and WeaverCast is never longer than 15 minutes, so let's get started. So today, we are going to be going over the keyboard and basically how we can use the keyboard to effectively use RapidWeaver better, right? So we can kind of help speed things up by memorizing a couple little keyboard shortcuts. Now, I do have to admit, I'm about to say the M word because this isn't my keyboard that I use every day. But it looks cool. I like this keyboard, but my wrists don't like it very much. This is my keyboard. It's from Microsoft. It's the Ergo keyboard, but it's cool. But the keyboard commands work the same, right? So we're going to be going over keyboard shortcuts and some cool ones that you can use to use RapidWeaver faster. So without further ado, let's get started. So really quick, what is the thing that we do the absolute most inside RapidWeaver? I bet it's exactly the same for you as it is for me. It is switching between preview and edit mode so that you can preview your website, right? Well, a lot of times you can go ahead and click this little, switch on the bottom here, okay? And that's fine, but you have to move your mouse down there and whatnot. But what if we knew a keyboard shortcut and it is simply Command R? And it is a beautiful command. Quickly go from edit mode to preview mode and back to edit mode. So to go back to edit mode, you just hit Command R again, and bam, you're back to edit mode. This is by far the most used keyboard shortcut that I use throughout my day. I'm constantly switching back and forth between edit mode and preview mode. Edit mode, preview mode. Edit mode, preview mode, right? It's just Command R. I bet you my R key is going to wear out really quick. So that is tip number one. Now, there are tons of other keyboard shortcuts. Another one that I use a lot is showing the page inspector. So that is Command-Shift-I. And this is a great way just to open up the page inspector really quick. Now, if you wanted to get to the page plugins, it is Alt-Command-I, right? So what are some other things that we can do? Command-K brings up your publishing settings. Command-Shift-K will actually publish your site, assuming you have it configured to be published. You can Command-Shift-E will export your site, right? Command-1 brings up your site setup. There's all kinds of other great ones. Command-Shift-M marks all pages as changed, okay? Now, where do you learn all these things? Like, I'm just regurgitating these commands because I've used them enough where my fingers have muscle memory for them. But how do you know where they are? Well, luckily there is a built into OS X, so every single application that you use, this is not just for RapidWeaver. If we look at the menus, you will notice next to the menu command for every single thing that we want to do is a keyboard shortcut. So if I want to duplicate a page in this instance, it would be Command-D. Earlier I said exporting a site was Shift-Command-E, right? Publishing settings, Command-K, okay? Making all pages marked as changed, Shift-Command-M, okay? A lot of these things are just now ingrained in my brain, but if you ever forget what they are, just simply go to these menus, look at the command that you'd want to learn, and then remember the keyboard shortcut. Now, another one that I use a lot is clear formatting. This is Alt-Command-Period. Very useful if you are pasting in some text from somewhere and you want to quickly clear the formatting. Just do Command-A to select everything and then Alt-Command-Period, right? And that clears the formatting for you. It could not be easier. That's another key one that I think you really should remember. Site setup we saw. Some other things, manage bookmarks. If you like bookmarks, we saw Command R, which is switching between edit mode and preview mode, right? Very useful thing. Now, one thing you might not know is if you hover over any sort of menu inside any app throughout Mac, hover over the menu and click the Alt key. Now watch the menu. We'll notice that we now have additional menu items that we did not see before. Now, export changes to default folder is something that I actually do all the time. It's probably next to Command R for me. Because I don't actually publish my web pages. I export them locally, and then I use something called Git to transfer them to my web server. So exporting changes locally is also another great way if you're like previewing your website locally for MAMP or using CodeKit or Live Reload, something like that, right? So exporting changes is really, really critical. It's a quick way of basically, it's like the publish button, but locally. So it's only going to publish the changes locally to your machine, to a folder that you've defined once you've actually done a full site export. Now, the only problem is this keyboard shortcut is really confusing. I don't know, my fingers can't hit Alt, Command, Shift, E very easily. It works, but you got to use the pinky and your thumb's got to use fingers got to be on 3 buttons, and then you hit the E. Okay, so what I normally do, and I undid it just for this podcast so I can redo it for you, is I change the mapping to export changes to default folder to a new keyboard command, and I like just using Command E because it's really simple for me. So let's go ahead and change that right now. So you're going to start off and going into your keyboard system preferences and going to the shortcuts tab. Then you're going to go into app shortcuts. Okay, and you'll see I have a couple shortcuts defined for other apps here. And we're going to click the plus button. And we want this to run on a specific application. In this instance, we want RapidWeaver. Okay, now we're going to have to know the menu title. So we wanted export changes to default folder. And then for the shortcut, I want to change that to Command E. So I hold down the Command button and the E button. And I'm going to go ahead and click Add. Now that's all I do for RapidWeaver. I'm happy with all the rest of the defaults, but this one I like to change it up a bit. So if we go into the RapidWeaver file menu, we'll now see that export changes to default folder has been changed to Command E. So if I go ahead and click Command E from now on, it's going to say site export. Do I want to save changes? I would say yes. And it's going to go ahead and export every changed file to the local folder that I specified when I did the original site export. Now we all love Stacks, right? Now luckily, Stacks has its own set of keyboard shortcuts that we can use. Now sometimes if you ever use RapidWeaver on a laptop, sometimes screen real estate can kind of be a desire, right? And so what we can easily do is hide the settings pane. And you simply do that by clicking the I button. It's just I, it's not Command I. All of these Stacks keyboard shortcuts is just a letter or number. There is no command button associated with it. So you can't run these commands when you're in like text editing mode per se. But if you just have a stack highlighted on the page and you hit the I key, you'll notice that the settings pane will toggle on and off. Very convenient. Another thing that we can do is we can switch between these Stacks view modes. So normally I like to edit my Stacks in Venti mode, okay? But there's also a tall mode, grande mode, and of course the Venti mode for editing Stacks. And you'll notice that if we go back down to tall mode, we really get a nice potential preview of what our site will look like. Now we're looking at my new theme called Foundation that's coming out really soon. And I've worked really hard so that you can actually get as close as possible to previewing your website inside Stacks edit mode without actually having to switch back into RapidWeaver's preview mode. So it's just a little bit faster while you're editing. You can just simply go hit the one button and bam, And if you want to continue editing, you can continue to edit in this mode. You can edit your text, you can change site setting or stack settings and things of that nature. And if you want it, go back, you can just go ahead and click on number 3, go back to Venti mode and continue on as you would before. Now there are a bunch of other options for stacks, and they're all listed inside the settings pane for stacks. So if you open up the page inspector and go to the page settings and go to shortcuts tab, you'll notice here are all of the keyboard shortcuts that you can use. You can toggle the stack elements library, the templates library, and the media libraries just by hitting E, T, and M. We saw the various view mode switches. And then you can also navigate around stacks with the arrow keys. So if you have a stack selected and you want to go down, you can use the arrow keys and whatnot. We saw that you can also toggle the info pane, and there's also ways to, in developer mode, to see additional debug information as well as reload your stacks library. Most of the time this is only useful for developers. So just to review, the keyboard shortcuts that I use the most. Inside RapidWeaver, we have Command R to switch between preview and edit mode. We have Command E, which we remapped inside the OS X system preferences to export our site changes. You can also publish your site with Shift Command K, okay? And lastly, we can change the view modes inside stacks between Venti, Tall, and Grande modes, and also toggle our stack settings pane easily with the I key. Well, thanks for joining today, everyone. I hope you learned a couple of tidbits and how to use these keyboard shortcuts to make you a little bit more productive. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, hit me up on the various internets. I'm at Joe Workman. That's app.net and Twitter. You can shoot us an email at support@joeworkman.net. Let us know what you think. If you love the podcast, go ahead and submit some reviews in iTunes. I'd appreciate that. Get some review love in iTunes is always appreciated. And as always, these podcasts are brought to you by my products. So go ahead and check out some of my awesome Mac and RapidWeaver add-ons at joeworkman.net. And thank you very much, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you very much. Bye.